I like to say that I'm an interdisciplinary artist, which means you're mixing different media together. So back when I was closer to your age, I was drawing a lot, painting, and then eventually I started making projects like sculptures, projects for public space. I started to explore land art in my 20s, and then that turned into installation art and living art. So I would make art and sculptures with plants. So I'd say I say I'm definitely interdisciplinary because it means that I'm mixing up a lot of different media. And I follow the media that like suits the expression. So if I feel like being nerdy with my maps, then I'll draw for a while. And sometimes if I like exploring color and just being more free, I'll be splashing lots of inks onto a canvas. So I have been really curious about color lately, but wild color and living color. So I'm making inks, and I have been creating a body of ink. So my goal is to do about 6 new colors this summer. And I've created 2 so far that are 2 different shades of brown that come from spruce and white pine bark. So I go to the trunk of a tree at the back of my property here, and I'll harvest a little bit of the old rotten white pine bark and the old rotten spruce bark, and I'll boil it down. And I'll create a really nice concentrated color. And I'll use that. I'll add a little bit of binder like gum arabic, which is a solution we use in ink making. And I'll filter it. I'll take out all the chunks and the dusty bits, and then that will be the color that I use. And I've been splashing it on canvases and layering other things on top, like other colors. Sometimes I'll boil down hibiscus tea if I want a splash of red. And so that's kind of what I'm nerding out about right now. I really like being outside, and I like working under open sky. Sometimes the weather's not great for that. I have had a table set up outside in my yard for the last week or so. When it's windy, I have to make sure everything's weighed down. But for the most part, I really like being outside. I like observing what's around me and seeing the changes. I also have a pretty functional workshop downstairs in the basement with nice high ceilings. All my gear is there. I got tables, I got gear and supplies to pretty much do what I need. The rest of my house is pretty much all open for creation. So there's a loft too that I use. I've never really seen art and life as separate. I've always felt like they were really tied together. And I always found it a little bit weird that we had a definition or a word for art in our culture that means something, right? It means like it has to be a certain thing. Like to be an artist, you have to fit inside this kind of box. But I always felt like art was connected to community. Art was connected to maybe the way I live in the world, and the way I engage in community, and the way I make my living, and the way I see the world, and the way I interact with people, and how I use my time as well. So that can come out in the way I cook, or the way I organize my house, or the way I organize my days, and the way I create my time and use my time. But over the years, it started really just always interested in painting and drawing, and it led to other projects that became bigger and started drifting more towards the outdoors and connecting to the earth, connecting to place. For me, that's a very, very strong theme, and a lot of what I've always done is connection to place, connecting to the earth beneath our feet, and finding ways to use art as a vehicle. It doesn't matter what it looks like. For me, the art is the message that I have and the message that I'm sharing, and what kinds of things it makes people think about. So using art as a way to raise awareness. The more you do something, the more people get to know you as that person doing that thing. And when you're in a place long enough, and when you do something in a way that's repetitive enough, you're going to start to create a bit of a path. And that path is something that others can recognize. And I think word of mouth is definitely a way that I have been able to continue. word of mouth, people sharing, saying what I'm up to, and then that leading to other connections, whether it's jobs, whether it's teaching workshops, whether it's opportunities to exhibit in galleries or collaborations with other artists as well. I think it's really the community aspect for me is a big part of how that word gets out. Land art as a discipline, as an art medium, is a pretty young form of art in North America. It's got a much older history in Europe. You have in here, I would say in North America, some of the first land artists were emerging from New York City in the 70s, and they had a very strong desire to get outside of the gallery, to get out more into the landscape. And they created some of these large-scale landscape style pieces. There was one of the first ones that that drew my attention was by Robert Smithson in Great Salt Lake. It was called the Spiral Jetty. And I decided to make something similar, but I didn't want to make it with big, heavy machinery, truckloads of rocks. I wanted to make a human scale land art piece. And so at the time I was living in Montreal, and I made a community collaborative land art piece that was a big, about 300 square foot circle on some land that was owned by Canadian Pacific Railway at the time, and it was put together with cardboard, leaves, hay, compost, and we created a big garden with these layers of mulch. And so that was done on the ground with hands, with feet, no machines, and it became a 4-year project that lasted in Montreal on this piece of land that was slated for demolition. And after a while, more and more people got involved, and more people were caring for this site, and it became a community movement. And so we ended up saving that land from development using art as activism. I've exposed, I had a bunch of ceramic pieces that I did in collaboration with another local artist that was exhibited at the National Art Centre last winter. And I had a show at Ottawa City Hall Gallery last fall. I have an exhibit coming up at a local gallery in Chelsea at La Fab next February. So that's another thing coming up. So I'm preparing for shows, but the shows are not the reason I produce. Usually I'll have chunks of time where I'll work on one project. And if I have a place to exhibit it and share it with the public months down the line, then it's nice that I have a place to share it.